Constantinople, founded by Emperor Constantine in 330 AD, stood as the capital of the Byzantine Empire for over 1,000 years. Strategically located on the Bosporus Strait, this city was the bridge between Europe and Asia, and a major hub for trade, culture, and religion. With its towering walls, Constantinople was considered nearly impregnable. Over the centuries, it had survived countless sieges, from the Persians to the Arabs, and even from the Crusaders. But in 1453, Constantinople's importance was no longer just strategic. It was symbolic. The Byzantine Empire, which once stretched across Europe and into the Middle East, had been reduced to just Constantinople and a few surrounding territories. The Ottomans, on the other hand, had risen in power and territory, spreading across Asia Minor and Europe. The fall of this great city would mean the collapse of the last remnants of the Roman Empire, a blow to Christian Europe, and the rise of a powerful Islamic empire. Now let's talk about the man who would be the catalyst for this monumental event, Sultan Mehmet II, also known as Mehmet the Conqueror. Mehmet became Sultan of the Ottoman Empire at just 19 years old, and was a ruler with vision and ambition far beyond his years. From a young age, he was determined to make Constantinople the jewel of his empire. Unlike other Ottoman rulers who hesitated, Mehmet saw Constantinople not just as a city, but as the key to uniting his territories and establishing a lasting legacy. His dream was not only to capture Constantinople, but to reshape the world order. For him, it wasn't merely a battle for territory, but a mission that was almost religious in nature. In the months leading up to the siege, Mehmet meticulously prepared his forces. He gathered an army of about 80,000 to 100,000 men, a massive force at the time. Among them were elite janissaries, highly trained soldiers who served as the Sultan's personal guard and the backbone of the Ottoman army. But Mehmet's secret weapon wasn't his soldiers. It was something far more destructive: cannons. He enlisted a Hungarian engineer named Urban, who designed enormous cannons capable of demolishing even the strongest walls. These cannons, the largest of which was the Basilica cannon, were a revolutionary advancement in warfare. This super cannon weighed over 16 tons and could fire stones weighing up to 600 kilograms over a mile. Urban's creation marked a turning point in siege warfare, and Mehmet believed it would give him the edge he needed to break through Constantinople's legendary walls. Let's take a moment to appreciate the defenses of Constantinople, which had been perfected over centuries. The city was surrounded by 3 sets of walls. The outer wall, known as the Theodosian walls, was 5.5 meters thick and 12 meters high, with massive towers every 50 meters. Behind it was a second wall, and beyond that, an inner wall that was even higher. Together, these defenses were considered impenetrable. But with the Basilica cannon, Mehmet intended to shatter this ancient barrier. The Byzantines, on the other hand, were in a difficult position. Emperor Constantine XI, the last Byzantine emperor, could muster only about 7,000 defenders, a mix of Byzantine soldiers, Genoese allies, and Venetian merchants. Their forces were vastly outnumbered and under-equipped, and while they had their own cannons, they were far smaller than Mehmet's artillery. On April 6, 1453, the siege began. Mehmet's forces surrounded Constantinople on both land and sea. From the first day, the Ottoman cannons unleashed a relentless bombardment against the Theodosian walls. The sound of cannon fire and the sight of stone crashing into the walls filled the defenders with a mix of awe and dread. Despite the strength of the walls, even they couldn't withstand this kind of force indefinitely. As the bombardment continued day after day, cracks began to appear, and sections of the wall started to collapse. The Byzantines, however, were determined to defend their city. They worked tirelessly to repair the walls each night, filling the gaps with rubble, timber, and anything they could find. But with each passing day, the situation grew more desperate. While the cannon bombardment continued on land, Mehmet also launched an assault from the sea. Constantinople's harbor, the Golden Horn, was protected by a massive iron chain that stretched across its entrance, preventing Ottoman ships from entering. But Mehmet, ever the strategist, devised a plan to overcome this barrier. In a stunning feat of engineering, he ordered his men to drag ships overland around the chain, using logs and greased tracks to move the vessels. By April 27, Ottoman ships had bypassed the Golden Horn's defenses, effectively cutting off Constantinople's supply lines. Now the city was surrounded on all sides, by land and by sea. The Byzantines, already stretched thin, were in an even more perilous position. Within the city, the atmosphere was tense and grim. Constantinople's people, both civilians and soldiers, were trapped, facing an uncertain fate. Emperor Constantine XI did everything in his power to keep morale high, but the odds were daunting. Food supplies were dwindling, and the psychological impact of the constant bombardment weighed heavily on the defenders. The emperor himself was known to fight alongside his men, a symbol of resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. Despite the desperate situation, the Byzantine defenders held on to hope, looking to the west for assistance. Messages were sent to the Pope and European monarchs, pleading for reinforcements. However, political rivalries, ongoing conflicts, and religious divisions meant that help was limited and slow to arrive. Constantinople was on its own. After nearly 2 months of siege, the situation reached a breaking point. On May 28th, Sultan Mehmet ordered a final, all-out assault for the following day. As night fell, the Ottomans launched their last push, a relentless and organized attack from all sides. In the early hours of May 29th, wave after wave of Ottoman troops stormed the breached sections of the walls. The Byzantines fought valiantly, but they were overwhelmed by the sheer number of attackers. The famed Janissaries, disciplined and deadly, led the charge, and for every defender that fell, it seemed 2 more attackers took their place. Emperor Constantine XI, refusing to flee, fought alongside his soldiers to the very end. According to legend, he tore off his imperial robes and charged into the fray as just another soldier, meeting his death on the battlefield as his city fell around him. By midday, the Ottomans had fully breached the city, and Constantinople was theirs. Mehmet the Conqueror, just 21 years old, entered the city in triumph. For the Byzantine Empire, this was the end. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves across Europe and the Islamic world. For centuries, Constantinople had been a beacon of Christianity in the East, and its fall marked the end of an era. But for Mehmet and the Ottomans, this was a new beginning. The Sultan declared Constantinople the new capital of the Ottoman Empire and promptly began restoring and transforming the city. Hagia Sophia, the grand Christian cathedral, was converted into a mosque, symbolizing the transition from Byzantine rule to Ottoman dominance. Over time, Constantinople would flourish under Ottoman rule, becoming one of the most important cities in the world. Mehmet's conquest of Constantinople transformed the Ottoman Empire into a powerful entity that would dominate the Eastern Mediterranean and Europe for centuries. The capture of the city also marked the end of the medieval world and the beginning of a new age in both Europe and the Middle East. The siege of Constantinople in 1453 was more than just a battle. It was a pivotal moment in history that reshaped the balance of power between East and West. The fall of Byzantium marked the end of the ancient Roman Empire, a legacy that had lasted over 1,000 years. This event also served as a catalyst for the European Renaissance, as scholars and artists fled the fallen city, bringing with them ancient texts and knowledge that would spark an age of enlightenment. For the Ottoman Empire, it marked the beginning of a golden era, as Constantinople became Istanbul, a city that stood at the crossroads of empires, cultures, and religions.